He remembers the sound, the sharp, musical clink of glass on pavement, a sound that meant treasure. For a boy in 1962, an empty Coke bottle wasn't trash. It was a ticket to a double feature, a new comic book, a pocket full of jawbreakers that would last all afternoon. This is the story of Billy McIntyre, and the summer he learned that the real treasure was never in the bottle at all. Stick around, because this is a story I think you'll understand deep in your bones, a story about what we really collected all those years ago. Billy was 10 years old, with scabby knees and a crew cut that his mom maintained with a bowl and a pair of sharp sewing shears. His world was a 5-block radius in a small Ohio town, a kingdom of cracked sidewalks and towering oak trees. And his empire was built on empty pop bottles. He knew every hiding spot. The tall grass behind the bleachers at the Little League field, where men would leave their RC colas and new grapes after the game. The dusty alley behind the A&P, where the stock boys would sometimes sneak a break. His pockets would jingle with the weight of his findings, a currency of glass and hope. His destination was always Miller's General Store. The screen door slammed with a sound like a firecracker, and the air inside was a thick soup of smells: sawdust, licorice, and the faint, oily scent of the new bicycle tires hanging from the ceiling. Old Man Miller, his spectacles perched on the end of his nose, would stand behind the counter and wait. He never smiled, but his eyes would crinkle just a little as Billy would line up his bounty on the worn wooden counter. 2 cents for a small, 5 cents for a large. The math was done in Billy's head long before he reached the store. 2 large bottles and a small one. That's 12 cents. A new Superman comic was a dime. That left 2 cents for decisions. A red licorice whip or 2 root beer barrels. The goal that summer, the holy grail, was a genuine Rawlings fielder's glove, the kind his hero, Rocky Colavito, used. It hung on a hook behind Mr. Miller's counter, a beautiful, deep brown leather mitt that cost a staggering $5.95. To Billy, it might as well have been 1,000. He'd stare at it while Mr. Miller counted his pennies, imagining the satisfying thwack of a baseball settling into its pocket. He had a plan. He'd get that glove by the end of summer. Every discarded bottle was a step closer. His routine was a religion. Up with the sun, a bowl of sugar pops, and then he'd hit the streets, a scavenger on a mission. He had competition, of course. The Henderson brothers, who were bigger and faster, and sometimes claimed the prime territory down by the drugstore. But Billy was smarter, more patient. He knew that the best finds often came after a holiday weekend, when the park was littered with the evidence of family picnics. The 4th of July was his Christmas. One sweltering Tuesday, the air so thick you could taste it, Billy was making his rounds behind the town's only bowling alley, the Alleys. It was a gold mine for heavy, returnable Pabst Blue Ribbon bottles the men would leave behind. As he bent down to grab one, he saw something else glinting in the sun, half buried in the dirt. It wasn't a bottle. It was a silver dollar. An actual, honest-to-goodness silver dollar. His heart hammered against his ribs. This was a fortune. This was the glove. It had to be. He snatched it up, the metal cool and heavy in his palm. It felt like power. He could go straight to Miller's, plunk it down, and that glove would be his. No more searching, no more saving. But as he stood there, a shadow fell over him. It was Mr. Miller himself, carrying a crate of empty soda bottles out the back door of the bowling alley, which he also owned. Billy's fist clenched around the coin, guilt flashing through him like a fever. "Find a buried treasure, son?" Mr. Miller asked, his voice a low rumble. Billy, caught, slowly opened his hand. The silver dollar shone in the midday sun. Mr. Miller's eyes softened. He set the crate down with a grunt. "That's a Morgan silver dollar," he said. "1921, belonged to my father." He didn't sound angry, just tired. "Must have fallen out of my pocket when I was taking out the trash last night. Been in the family a long time." Billy's dream of the glove evaporated in an instant. With a heart heavier than any bag of bottles, he handed the coin back. Mr. Miller took it, his rough fingers brushing Billy's palm. He looked at the boy, really looked at him, at his grimy face and determined eyes. "You're saving for that glove, aren't you?" Billy just nodded. unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Mr. Miller nodded slowly. Honesty is a rare thing, Billy McIntyre. Rarer than silver. He turned and walked back inside, leaving Billy standing there, his treasure gone, his dream deferred. The rest of the summer felt different after that. The hunt for bottles lost a little of its magic. The goal of the glove seemed farther away than ever. He still went to Miller's, still traded his glass for coins, but the transaction felt quieter, more solemn. He noticed things he hadn't before. How Mr. Miller would sometimes slip an extra piece of candy into a little kid's bag. How he'd let Mrs. Gable, the widow down the street, run a tab for her bread and milk until her Social Security check came in. Then, on the last Saturday before school started, Billy marched into Miller's with his final haul of the summer. He'd counted and recounted his jar of change at home. He had $4.17. It was more money than he'd ever had, but it wasn't enough. Not even close. He'd decided he'd buy a cheaper glove, the kind you had to oil for a year to break in. He walked up to the counter, the jar clutched in his hands. But the hook behind the counter was empty. The Rawlings glove was gone. Billy's heart sank. Of course, someone else had bought it. The Henderson brothers, probably. He felt a hot sting of disappointment behind his eyes. He blinked it back, determined not to cry in front of Mr. Miller. I guess I'll just have some candy," Billy mumbled, setting his jar on the counter. Mr. Miller didn't reach for the candy jars. Instead, he bent down and came up with a small, wrapped package. It was rectangular, about the size of a glove box. He placed it on the counter in front of Billy. "This," Mr. Miller said, his voice even quieter than usual, "is for you." Billy, confused, looked from the package to Mr. Miller's face. The old man gave a single, slow nod. With trembling fingers, Billy tore the brown paper away. It was the Rawlings glove, the very one. The leather was rich and supple, and it smelled like promise. He was speechless. I don't have enough," Billy finally whispered, pushing his jar of coins forward. Mr. Miller shook his head. "You paid for it, Billy. You paid for it with your honesty behind the bowling alley. And you've been paying for it every day since, with your hard work. That," he said, tapping the counter next to the glove, "is worth more than $5.95. A lot more." Billy slipped his hand into the glove. It was stiff, as all new gloves are, but it was perfect. It was his. He looked up at Mr. Miller, and for the first time, the old man gave him a real, genuine smile. It transformed his entire face. "Now," Mr. Miller said, "you're going to need a good hardball to break that in. Let's see what we can do about that." Billy thought that was the end of the story. A boy works hard, a lesson is learned, a reward is given. A perfect, simple memory from a simple time. He used that glove all through Little League and into high school. It molded to his hand, becoming an extension of his own body. He eventually grew up, went to college, got a job, got married, had kids of his own. The glove ended up in a box in the attic, a relic of a childhood long past. Decades later, Billy was cleaning out his mother's house after she passed. In the dusty silence of the attic, he found the box. There, beneath a stack of his old report cards and a faded varsity letter, was the glove. The leather was dry and cracked now, but the shape of his hand was still pressed into it. He smiled, remembering that long ago summer. He picked it up, and something rattled inside the pocket. Curious, he reached in. His fingers closed around a single, heavy coin. He pulled it out. It was the Morgan silver dollar. The one he'd found. The one he'd returned. Taped to it was a small, yellowed slip of paper, the kind from an adding machine. In Mr. Miller's shaky, old man script, it read, "For the next dream. Your friend, Arnie Miller." Billy sat back on his heels, the attic dust motes dancing in the slants of light from the small window. He held the coin, this artifact from his past, and the full weight of the old man's gift finally, truly landed. It had never been about the glove. Not really. Mr. Miller hadn't just rewarded his honesty that day. He had invested in it. He had seen a boy with a good heart and had chosen to nurture it, to show him that decacity and hard work were a currency that the world, if you were lucky, would recognize. That silver dollar wasn't payment. It was a message sent across 50 years. A message that said, "I believed in you then. I still believe in you now." All those years, Billy had thought he was just collecting bottles. But he was collecting something far more valuable. He was collecting a work ethic. He was collecting a memory. He was collecting the kindness of a gruff old man who ran a general store, a kindness that was now, literally, in the palm of his hand. The real treasure was the lesson, a lesson about integrity and the quiet, unexpected ways it gets returned to you, sometimes long after you've forgotten you ever gave it. The Coke bottles were just the container it came in. So if this story brought back a memory for you of a simpler time, of the weight of a few coins in your pocket, of a kindness you'll never forget, then maybe give this video a like and subscribe for more stories like this one. And down in the comments, I'd love to hear, what did you collect when you were 10? Because this story isn't really about Billy or a glove or a silver dollar. It's about the treasures we all carried home, in our pockets and in our hearts.